Hello, superfans. Welcome to Alberta News and Views and the Alberta Report podcast on YouTube. The constitutional battle for the future of Canada. Alberta to override the Charter of Rights using Section 33 of the Constitution, something Quebec has done 17 times. It is astounding how Quebec can do no wrong in Canada. But when Alberta does the exact same thing, like one or two times, all hell breaks loose across this country from coast to coast to coast. The feds, the federal government, is freaking out and have asked the Supreme Court for clarity. The Alberta government prepares to invoke notwithstanding clause on transgender laws. Now, I searched far and wide to try and bring some context and explain to you fine folks what the notwithstanding clause is. I was going to use AI. It's just complicated. I tried to get it to the point where it would explain it to us like we're five, but it didn't work. So I got Danielle Smith and comments from her and Scott Moe. Bear with me, because she decided to use really big words as well. The notwithstanding clause is integral to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms and an unassailable provincial constitutional right. While the Alberta government does not support the content of Quebec's Bill 21, we stand shoulder to shoulder with Quebec's constitutional right to invoke the notwithstanding clause as its government deems fit. We are extremely disappointed that the federal government would risk national unity and a foundational principle of our Constitution by attempting to attack the use of the notwithstanding clause by a sovereign provincial government. In this manner and request, they withdraw their appeal to the Supreme Court immediately. Now, this is after Sean Fraser come out with a statement. Sean Fraser, the minister, pardon my language here, but I call Sean Fraser the minister of fuck-ups because he fucked up the immigration system. He fucked up the housing, and now he's fucking up all of our judicial system as well. I don't know how Sean Fraser has a job. He was the minister of immigration, the minister of housing. It's just, now he's the minister of justice and the attorney general. Like, seriously, I don't know how he has a job. He has screwed up everything. Every job he's had with government. Anyway, he come out with a statement. Please see my statement on Canada's intervention before the Supreme Court. Blah, 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 blah. I'm not getting into that. I can't stand anything that guy says. Anyway, moving on. Here is Scott Moe. So Scott Moe, he says it right. He does a really good job in this. Saskatchewan will strongly oppose the federal government's attempt to limit the province's ability to use the notwithstanding clause. This would mean a significant infringement on the autonomy of provinces and their elected legislatures. The common argument that using the notwithstanding clause is a violation of the Constitution is false. The notwithstanding clause is part of the Constitution that premiers like Alberta's Peter Lougheed and Saskatchewan's Alan Blakeney fought to have included because they understood that when there is a collision of rights, the will of the duly elected legislature, not the courts, should prevail. Absolutely. That statement right there, because our courts are stacked with Justin Trudeau, Liberal appointed judges and senators. So it's extremely biased, which is why this legislation, this notwithstanding clause, is so important and enshrined and gives power to the provinces. Quote, in other words, Premier Blakeney wrote, if Parliament or the legislature decides that the breach of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms not set out in the Charter, or whether political or other circumstances are such that compliance with the Charter right will produce undesirable results, Parliament or the legislature may act notwithstanding the charter right, or notwithstanding a decision of the court that a charter right has been breached. Man, I really hope I said that right. This seems to me to be an elegant way to deal with the inevitable decisions that will occur between rights, which we seek to protect through legislative and executive action, and rights which we seek to protect through judicial action. End quote. Holy man. I completely agree with Premier Blakeney and strongly disagree with Ottawa's attempt to limit provinces' ability to use a notwithstanding clause. Now, he too stacked that comment on top of Sean Fraser's statement, talking about the intervention with the Supreme Court. The provinces need to keep their sovereignty. You can see that the federal government, it seems like every day, is just constantly trying to take more and more and more away from the provinces. And this comes on the heels of Sean Fraser introducing, he tabled the legislation targeting hate symbols, protecting places of worship. The hate speech bills, it's been revamped and there has been more added to it. Continuing on, here is the Mark Miller. Mark Miller, seriously. Mark Miller says, we need immigration whether we like it or not in this country. And Mark Miller took over the job of Sean Fraser as the Minister of Immigration. And it's just sickening. Listen to this.
You can't just scrap them and come out and fire off media sound bites that will rally up anti-immigrant sentiments. We need immigration whether we like it or not in this country, but I think we can have a reasonable conversation about it. And frankly, when you have premiers coming out and saying substantially the same thing, it's unproductive. Premiers, particularly in Ontario and BC, have shot up the number of international students that are working in programs or in industries that aren't commensurate with the degrees that those kids have gotten, and that's a problem.
You know, going back to the notwithstanding clause, before I get into this immigration crap, I love how it's always Alberta and Saskatchewan walking to the same beat of the drum. You know, you never hear any real big pushback from British Columbia against the federal government, and then like Manitoba and Ontario and Quebec and all this. Like, Quebec is being very vocal. I'll give them that. But they know that they got all the cards. They know that they run the election. They know that they run the federal government. It gives me hope. It gives me hope that if we've seen an independence, it would look very similar to the way it used to be when Alberta and Saskatchewan were one, before the government split us up. We would just be an economic, freedom-loving, liberty-loving, justice-loving powerhouse. Anyway, continuing on with this disgusting comment from Mark Miller saying, immigration's here to stay, learn to deal with it. Check this out. Since when is Punjabi an official language in Canada? This is a Manitoba provincial government press conference. Tell me again how we are not being taken over or overrun with unvetted immigration. Listen to this. And I'm showing you this because they're parliamentarians. They're in Parliament. So there are two official languages in Canada, English and French, not Punjabi. Let me turn it up for you. What the fuck was he saying? So, you know, when you have a minister saying, we need immigration whether we like it or not, maybe they should be forcing proper integration on these immigrants and educating them on our laws and our customs, whether they like it or not. And then you wouldn't have such hostility from the premiers expressing their concern, because we all have concerns, especially when our legislature is starting to speak a different language that is we are not accustomed to. Anyway, Moving on from Michael Cooper. Breaking news, everyone. A lobbyist, banker, and developer secretly hosted a reception for Liberal ministers and MPs to get around the Lobbying Act. What? The Liberals would not do that. Unbelievable. The law requires lobbyists to publicly report meetings with public officials. The Liberals must come clean about who attended and who lobbied who. They must come clean. I expect proper justice from this. Edmonton event held for Liberal ministers. MPs raised concern over lobbying rules. Don't tell me that they are unethical. How dare you? They would never do that. Next, moving on from the great Blacklocks reporter. I highly recommend you follow them. Get their newsletter. Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada Minister Jumpin' Jolie hires private advisors for, quote, rethink of USA relations. I posted this morning. Hilarious. She hires private advisors and doesn't say why none of the department's 6,200 employees or 15 trade offices are capable. Quote, we require current intelligence. This government for the last 10 years has been so incompetent that they spend billions of dollars on contractors and consultants to do their jobs for them. It is crazy that Canadians are struggling and they still just whip piles of cash around like it's nothing, like it's just another day. And of course, I showed you this. Mark Carney. Those who spread hate and violence in our communities will have no safe harbor in Canada. And, you think about Britain right now, 2023, the data come out. I believe they arrested over 12,000 people for posting memes and what they considered online hate. It's crazy that Canada is going down that road. Who decides hate? The government decides hate. And then it goes through committee. And then it goes to their special branch. If all this stuff passes and actually goes through Parliament, they're going to create new branches of government to combat online hate speech, and they'll decide what happens with who. And last time I read, they will work with platforms such as Google, Facebook, YouTube, blah, 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 to monitor what is hate speech and throw you in jail. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Not as crazy as this, though. From the Globe and Mail. Now, keep in mind, this is an opinion piece. Now, this is after Donald Trump designated Antifa as a terrorist organization, and Canada must follow suit. But the Canadian government funds an organization called the Anti-Hate Group, and Antifa in Canada has openly praised working with the Anti-Hate Group for getting rid of fascism, whatever they decide what hate is. Anyway, this is an opinion piece from the Globe and Mail. The headline says, Antifa hasn't existed since 1933. That makes Trump's attack on it even more menacing. It is absolutely ridiculous to think that people would believe that Antifa doesn't exist or it hasn't existed since 1933. And all you have to do is scroll down into the comments, and this guy just gets brutally beaten. Like, this article is ridiculous. From Andy, no, NGO, no, however you say it. I say Andy NGO. It's actually Andy, no. I told you to expect them to get bold with their lies. Yes, this is an outright lie. Andy's been followed. For all those of you out there that don't know, Andy he's a journalist, all right, and he was vlogging, and Antifa beat the shit out of him, and he won his lawsuit, all this stuff, which is great. So he's just been reporting on them year after year after year, lots of stuff, has a book on it, lots of good stuff. He says, here's Antifa International detailing how to join an Antifa cell or to start your own with other like-minded co-conspirators. They recommend joining the Torch Antifa network in the United States. It's all right here. Andy Lee, she also has great stuff. Give her a follow. Says, the Fifth Estate has articles, videos on it, confronting hate, how Antifa is tracking the extreme right. But how could they do that if they don't exist? Seriously. There's more from Candace Malcolm. If Antifa hasn't existed since 1933, why does the article include a modern-day image of Antifa? That is how ridiculous Carnage Media Corp is in Canada. Seriously, they have a headline. They haven't existed since 1933, and here is a picture of modern Antifa. Seriously, I love these comments. There's one more I want to show you. Where is this baby? Right here. Who are these guys? Same thing. Flags. They're all bonding together. This is why Donald Trump listed them as a terrorist organization, because there has been so much. Antifa Canada literally has like an Instagram page. Like, come on, you guys. It's crazy that the blob is still slowly moving forward and hasn't come to a halt yet. It's concerning how every single day we get more bad legislation stacked on bad, terrible legislation that should have been scrapped before. And what else is concerning is how our premiers, our mayors, our representatives aren't vocal. They're not vocal enough. But maybe that's what needs to happen. Like I always say, all roads lead to Western independence, and poverty is the best teacher. Been teaching for thousands of years and never wrong. I will keep you updated with as much as I can, when I can. All of you out there, like, share, and take care.